maybe a little bit of stuff I can go through. So I'll call to order the and we've reviewed the October meeting minutes. Make a motion to approve October minutes. So moved. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Is there any public on?
Nope.
No public. So we'll move on from public comment. We're gonna switch and we're gonna do new business first. We'll come back to old business. And that is to certify a police list.
And I have printed the list here. So there are, pass that around. There are 3 names on there. The interviews took place yesterday, actually. Graham was on the interview panel as well as Deanna and Sergeant Weiss. So the list came from the public safety testing list, and these are the 3 that received passing scores.
Okay.
So, does anybody have any other questions
Any
or any comments from you, Graham, or anything? Yes, 1 is a lateral and 2 are entry level. Sorry, I forgot that.
I think we,
I wonder.
we do well if we had,
I think it's all of
You will though. Okay.
He lives here in Snoqualmie, but I don't know much anything else. I kind of stay out of this side of it.
Yeah.
he's got 2 little kids, lives up here. Was a state patrolman for 8 years.
We won't hold out against it.
No, yeah. So no, I think the whole list was a quality group and.
All right.
Wasn't working.
Yeah.
So there's no questions. We have a motion to so move. And,
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. And,
Thank you. You know,
I'm
we're only
actually
3
gonna
down.
give that to you to sign.
We're doing well, considering.
If per se you find one of these that worked out for you, how many is that?
Well, if we get 1 out of this, we'll be 2 down.
Mhm.
But we're at a point now, once we get the ones that are in training, once they get out on their own, we might be able to go from our mandatory 12 shifts right now, which is, some of the officers have been doing it for over a year.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and that's pretty rough to do a lot of that stuff. So, very happy about that.
How many do we have at the academy?
Right now, we don't have any. We just had
We have
3
any.
graduate. Yeah, we just had 3 graduate. We have 2 that are waiting for their academy start date. So we have 2 that are pre-academy. So, and you know, it takes, it's about a 18-week long academy, and then the FTO program is about 18 weeks as well. So it takes them quite some time to get out on their own. By the time we hire before they go to the academy, and sometimes like right now, there's a wait of March 1st, the first week of March is when they're scheduled to go in. So again, it was up to 7-month wait, then it went down to about a 2-month. Now it's back up to maybe 5 months. So that's an issue that we're trying to look at correcting.
So if by chance, like I said, one works out from here and the 2 come out of the academy, does that fill you back up?
No, we'll be 2 down.
Still 2 down?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, but it still puts us in a position to where we can kind of operate normally.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if there was more things coming to go try and get the other 2.
We will be. And in
Okay.
fact, I'm going to start looking, I'm just not, and I think everybody should be concerned about this. We're just not getting the applicants, a diverse group of applicants. And so we're going to start trying to focus on getting a more diverse group to interview. And so that's going to be more of a focused effort, if you will, to try and get a more diverse group. So we just want qualified applicants, but we want to pick from a larger group. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So old business. We got our civil service rule edits and discussions.
Yes, I am ready.
just by way of background, these were reviewed by Steve DiGiulio, who is a principal at Boston Garden. Steve has been practicing municipal law for over 40 years, I think. It started among, I think, at Robertson Shuffleman, and then was throughout city attorney. Ernest Campbell Award from the State Municipal Attorneys Association, which is, so I got to hear a little more about his back. I've known him as long as I've been practicing. He's been practicing it 10 plus years, so I got to hear a little of his resume, which is why I'm excited some of it from memory. And among other things, he's on the Civil Service Commission for a long time. He does represent a number of jurisdictions, fire protection districts, and others with civil service commissions, and
Yeah, yeah.
He does do part of his practice. He serves as a hearing examiner and hearing official for commission when they hear. So what you see here are his suggested edits, which at least on my screen appear in blue, and some comments in the margins. Some of Mark Carrera's comments are still in the margins from Mark's previous review in January of this year.
They provide no value to the discussion.
Mark had also reviewed Steve's comments and had some responses. Unfortunately, Mark and I were working in two different versions of the document. So what you'll see in some of these are my repeat of Mark's comments to fold them in some version here. So I will say fire chief thinks this, and of course, if I had it wrong and Mark wants to chime in, you can do that. I'd say you could kind of summarize Steve's suggested edits into a couple categories. Some are typographical with aligned terms, secretary, chief examiner, things of that nature. Some are edits related to other references to collective bargaining agreement or other applicable provisions of the law, things like that. He suggests deleting half a dozen or so rules that when I then spoke with him, the deletion was really, he didn't see that they would ever be applicable because they tend to deal with transfers or between departments, and we don't see that very often. Members of the police service wanting to apply and transfer to fire or vice versa.
I wonder why not.
They have inquired. I'm just saying, there was 2 existing members of your department come and see me privately, asking how they could join the fire department. This was so much better.
They said they asked you for a recliner. You said,
Their seats were climbing those cruisers.
So there are a number
I've
of
got to get an
those.
award when I do retire. For my tolerance.
Tolerance and fire help.
So some of those.
That's
can
where it
be,
begins. That's not where it ends.
They can be kept. When I chatted with Steve about those, he said, well, if you can imagine a scenario, you might want to keep them, but certainly not necessary. So there are those. And then a third set of changes that are mostly here near the end that reference contested employment decision process, allowing for the use for the commission to delegate to a hearing officer or to utilize a hearing officer to conduct the proceeding. There are a variety of ways to do it, and then some tune-ups to the rules around service process and subpoenas and how that hearing will work. So those are mostly here in the latter pages of it. So that's what I see here. If you like, we can just kind of scroll together and go.
So, Bob, really quickly, there's some highlighted sections in
Yeah.
purple or pink or magenta, whichever color you choose to call it, in yellow. Those we added to it before. What? Trying to be inclusive.
Being diverse.
I'm trying to be inclusive. Those we highlighted before it went off to Steve, correct? And it was.
Correct.
Okay. And it just was more highlighting those areas for them to look at, but there's nothing specific to those, correct?
So a highlighter yellow on my screen doesn't mean any, it just means that one of the services suggested it and it stayed in the final draft. What should I draw from that? If I've got
Well,
you,
we can just discuss it here and the commission can give us direction about what if anything you want to do about it.
so
So,
these are still issues in yellow that are yet to be decided?
No. No, we highlighted them beforehand as they were placeholders for us when we were using this tracking device, so. I'm looking for the spreadsheet that we were.
for instance, in this very first one, 1.03 scope and purpose, it's
Right.
highlighted in yellow.
Yeah,
I think that was revised in the prior draft. I don't know any reason that it's still highlighted. We did-
Right.
We went over them already.
And
Okay,
Julia
okay.
It
reviewed it as
just
well.
didn't delete the yellow when we got done with
I
it.
got you. Okay,
Right.
And the
okay.
attorney reviewed it as well and didn't have any comments, so
Yeah.
we'll clean those
All
up.
It won't be yellow.
Right.
Right. There are, for instance, there's a highlighting and then in the very next section, 105, and Mark had a note this is back from February. Should we add something to address potential conflict with CDAs? And so you'll see at the tail end of that paragraph, Steve did add some language regarding the potential for direct conflict with the division of the collective bargaining agreement, and then indicating how the commission would respond, which would be that the CBA would control. And so there's still yellow highlighting here, there's still that margin.
But this is still a final, this still is a final draft.
This is a final draft as far as the staff is concerned. It
Gotcha. Okay,
incorporates
okay.
all of the commission's prior input. And then just what you see here are notes from Mark, and myself, and mostly Steve's proposed edits.
All right.
So what I was hoping to do was move through these as quickly as you're comfortable, get any direction, thumbs up, thumbs down, change it, get that direction so that we can take this away and bring you a clean version for the next option.
Yeah, we've been kicking this around.
That's what I understand, yeah.
So.
I got here just in time. I know.
Yeah,
Right at the
exactly.
end.
Some staffing changes caused some slight delays.
Time is everything.
You come at the end of Thanksgiving, you say, can I help with the dishes?
Yeah, right, exactly.
There's two.
I've been talking to my wife, okay.
Okay, so, moving on there, then the suburbility paragraph also highlighted in yellow. There was a question about whether we should call things out specifically, Sarah, or other statutes. Steve's suggestion really was to move in the opposite direction and just say other law and delete specific references. You can see that is that it suggested that.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any blue highlights. I understood what you said, but I'm.
Oh, it's
It's not a highlight, it's just
Sorry,
an
blue
underline.
editing, yes. So Steve suggested changes appear in blue underscore and strikeout.
If you can't get it up on his
Yeah,
screen, you
so-
can use mine.
like that.
Oh, it's underscored. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a handful of my own that I've added based on my conversation with Steve. Those appear in purple.
Is that what you mean?
So go to 1.05.
I heard you threw in another color.
1.05.
Yeah.
So
Waiting
1.05,
for
get to the bottom of that.
Like that.
Yeah, controlling, yeah, okay, looks like yours is highlighted.
And under.
Yeah, okay, and well, yeah, this is the new section.
Yeah.
Your underline is what. is
Okay,
what
gotcha.
Steve is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, this is. And it's kind of late considering that I started this, but 2.0.1 about meeting at the Snoqualmie Fire Department. It's still in there. So somewhere in my memory, so I asked about this because I thought we might change it to here, but I think the common thing we were talking about was it's called out on the agenda. And so, did we want to put, the decision at that time was just to leave this here and let the living document send us where we're supposed to go.
Like what the actual, I was gonna say something like, at the location published in the public meeting. notice.
Designated,
Yeah, the designated
That's way
location or
cleaner.
something,
Rather than leave
a
it.
specific place.
specific.
That's why it's highlighted.
That's why we can go wherever we wanted to have the meeting and just put it on there. Perfect, let's do that.
Mhm.
Right, and if I might suggest a refinement on that, I think the reason for the location is that if this is tracking the Open Meetings Act and the statute that refers to designating a time and place for the meeting, but you could say at the Snoqualmie Fire Department or City Hall as designated in the public notice. So
Okay.
The rule tells the public it's gonna be one of the two places and it'll show up.
Okay. I'm cool with that.
There will be those who will read this, wait,
Mhm.
spend their weekend pouring over it and then show up at the fire department and all that.
Or send 3 emails about it.
Oh, no, it won't be free. It'll be 10, increasing number of capital.
Still going.
Okay, and so that you'll see also the end of that same paragraph, Steve suggested, add there relating to quasi judicial hearings related to promotion suspension, which are not subject to. No comments or questions there. About the next rule. Suggesting delete the two commissioners adhering to the same, no more than two adhering to the same political party. That appears, that comes from the statute. When the statute contemplated that the commission would have 3 members, our rule provides for more commissioners, and obviously you couldn't feasibly have this rule. So Steve suggests striking that, as well as the staggering term language, which comes from the original rule, comes from the statute, but would only come into play when the commission's first formed. You have everything going on at the same time, then you have to set up that staggering rule. Once that's been in place, as it has here for many years, there's no need for that. So we suggest. Scrolling down to 202, which adds some language relating to challenges to a commissioner for potential bias in a proceeding. So rounded that out. Steve had pointed out that there was some duplication in Rule 207. So when you get down lower, you'll see just deleting 207. This language here stands on its own.
Well, except it doesn't, because 209 references 207.
So we can correct that.
Yeah, we need to-
The 202. Which
Just the operation of 202 and 209 is interesting.
right, that's a reference to the rule of necessity.
Yeah.
And that appears in the appearance fairness statute in NRC 42. It's just designed.
People from challenging people out and then not holding their,
Like obstructing business by raising challenges. Okay, so we had still here in 2.1903 appointment of the Secretary Chief Examiner. Mark's comment just observes the question that had been raised. Mark, you might be able to speak to whatever discussion occurred on that. I believe that will the commission was to leave the language as is, just have the mayor recommend. And then the commission.
Which number is it?
Language
21903.
I'm sorry, no, now I'm on in 301.
301. Yeah, this had to do with how the position was appointed. I think Buzzy was the one who raised it about. Historically, it's just been the city appoints the person, usually somebody out of HR or another department. The question was, what if the commission wanted to select a different secretary, or wasn't?
So it may be in the, I thought this was the second, but the concern for me was the second part of section that said the commission shall appoint. And I don't think we shall appoint. We may appoint, and any language you want to use to get there was fine with me. I really thought we dove pretty deep on this one, and I thought we changed the language, but this doesn't appear to be the changed language.
What are you looking at, Buzzy? Two what?
3.01,
301.
yeah, and so the short version of this is, this says that the mayor appoints somebody,
Gotcha.
and we have to accept it, we shall.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say is, should or may, or some other language that said, so just to go back, because I've been on this commission for a while, there's never been a time that we didn't approve whoever the mayor appointed. So that's never been a problem, but it could be someday. I'm just trying to avoid that. And we're a separate entity. And so we should have the right to say yes or no. That's it. She appoints all day long. That's her job. I get that. She, in this case, Catherine, but, so anyway, that,
Yeah, it's kind of conflicting.
yeah, and my sense was if we changed the language of 301, that 303 could be deleted. Because it's really complicated. 303 is really complicated. It really gets nuts.
You could, on the 301, follow the model for appointing the city official, that you would change the language to the mayor shall appoint subject to confirmation by the commission. And then if the commission doesn't confirm the appointee, the mayor appoints someone else.
Yeah,
That was the theory, or that was in my brain.
that's more rational in operation anyway, because I've looked at 303 a couple times. I don't see us ever convening a competition for a secretary.
No one wants it.
A road race.
Well, worse yet, we don't want to
race
do
out
it.
It is all because,
Yeah. No, we don't want to go to it.
Yeah. Assume somebody wants to do
There
it.
are all
Yeah.
sorts of CEO and HR and 900 other different things that we want nothing to do with. So, yeah, I think, shall recommend on confirmation. That way, we can- if nothing else, we have a veto, which is probably all we could have on that one.
However, you describe that.
It seems no rational how that preserves the notion.
Okay, and then delete 303.
Yeah, it probably requires us to delete 303 and then to reword it on 303.
I'm keeping those two, Bob.
Mostly doing this as like circle back, see back. So 30708. Just. What the secretary does with respect to administering, scheduling in. Definitions are in section 4. Mark had a comment about moving it to section 1. That's. People would find more help.
It is a model document. I use in other cities as a guide, and theirs is the same thing. It's in section 4. But it's that's where I'm at.
I'm not gonna volunteer to reformat, so I'm okay with it right there.
That's a lot of busy work.
It's 4.20, that's just correction. I don't know what happened with this
4.29.
4.1 being inserted in the middle. Yeah, 4.27. So that looks again like just cleaning up language. That 429 is clarification.
Yeah, it was just a formatting thing.
433 is the same thing.
You still show 4.30. I go from 429 to 431. I missed that.
They actually did that purposefully in case it was an additional later on. You can add the even number ones.
Yeah, again, this 441 that was appeared in the middle of the page out of order has been moved back down.
Yeah, I see it now.
We cut and pasted it.
443. Similar with 453, for some reason it's out of place, so it's struck. There. So it's correctly in the right place. These are.
It got legal
oh,
for you and me.
items, 455.
The legal head of the police and fire department.
Steve had a question in 459 about deleting or class. In-house register,
Says it's redundant.
just asking, right?
It goes back to the terminology they use in this document, class versus employee versus candidate versus eligible.
Well, a class is a multiple positions.
Yeah.
So a class is a police officer position, officer in a class.
Mhm.
Or fire.
Right. Keep or strike, is that what the question is on that, or? It's never been a point of controversy.
I'm thinking 459 is a list of names of civil service employees in the order of final examination day, which have passed the examination period. And then I keep the rest. That would be my suggestion. Just delete everything after examination.
And that could then include a promotional register. Right, Mark?
Mhm.
Potentially these examinations.
Yeah, it's just a process we use to create the list.
If we're good with deleting everything.
Examination period. Delete the rest, delete the- There's a little bit of language cleanup in 479 and 481. It's
Yeah.
mostly just syntax. .505, a little modernization to for making it. The rules available on a website. Or a copy for free.
Needs to be a period at the end of that.
Numbering, we'll go through and make sure the number is accurate as well.
Yeah, 453.
Pops up in the floor.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, looks like you cut and pasted in there.
Probably written on the master template, and so it'll just keep showing. It's weird. The rule that doesn't want to go with it.
Mhm.
So 610 is much real big one.
Oh, sorry.
You've had enough this time.
Time for his medicine.
I've had my limit.
Scared me.
This suggested edit is really just deleting explanatory language as to what and why, but doesn't change the operative fact, which is describing the process for it. Sure.
That's just the RCW language.
703 is talking about the time period for submitting applications for promotional exams. And just suggested deleting some default provision in reference to 30 days.
It's covered in the labor agreement.
Then. Yeah, let's remove it.
So in 707, there's some existing references, and Steve highlighted them, just they're shown in brackets, and so I just want to get concurrence that those are the time periods that are workable for how long somebody can file for an application in terms of being under the specified age or under the specified experience. You can adjust those longer or shorter.
It's an action of the commission as well, it looks like.
Right. Does that come up in practice?
No,
I think it would come up in. It's more than 5.
we have a hard age limit for application.
And when I saw the photos circulated of some of your new folks, it wasn't clear what the police department had.
It wasn't me this time, it wasn't me. And I didn't put him up to it.
I'm not gonna disagree with that.
So I was dropping off at work in the morning.
Double check.
He's already-
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he did a tour of duty, and he still is. He guarded the, what do you call
The
it?
embassy, wasn't it?
Yeah, the embassy.
Mhm.
And
Not as a Marine.
he looks like he's 12.
Wow.
It's all right, give him about,
He'll be thankful for it.
yeah.
All right, are we comfortable with these, since they're subject to commission approval? Yeah. All right. We'll just delete the brackets. All right, 711, there, Mark had a comment about a request for language allowing commissioners to sit on the interview panel. Steve's recommendation is that you don't do that because it potentially puts you in a conflict position if there's been a challenge to that process and the commission has to sit. We haven't had any in, my tenure at the city where appeals have gone to the commission, but they certainly can.
Yeah, it can. So, so this is my number one reason for getting into this whole doing the whole thing was for the memorialization to have either both police and fire ask a civil service commissioner or a group of service. Not that it's required, because like if one of us can't show up, then we wouldn't be able to hold the panel. That's crazy. But I'm trying to find some language that says before every interview panel, police or fire, that commissioners are asked, hey, can you be here on this time and day? Now that's what's happening. And for this group, it's great. 20 years from now, maybe not. And so I believe some sort of language needs to be in there, like I said, to memorialize it. And then the city point back and say, but there is a citizen that sits on these commissions or is involved in this. So I don't want to hear anything about, you guys are like pulling wool over my eyes, or it's a funky interview or something like that. It's like, no, we have a citizen sitting on every single one, or who was invited to sit on every single one. And And so if I realize, and if the rest of the commissioners are worried about, getting caught in the pinch, if there's a lawsuit or something, I totally understand that, but I'm not gonna change my opinion. I still think it needs to be memorialized.
I think we only do no more than one. But I think if it's no more than one. Because here's the thing, that way we have enough of a quorum in the rest of the commission
To do
that we can handle whatever comes up and then that person can recuse themselves from the proceeding.
And I'm totally okay with that idea. So, but I also think, like I said, I agree with that. I'm totally okay with it. And I think it's an extra thing that the city can point to, says about having citizens involved in the hiring and or whatever language you want to use. Because there's some cities that do whatever they want to do and people find out later on and anyway, I won't even go into why I started all this, but I would appreciate some sort of language.
Also, and I agree with you. I always believe that there should be somebody that's completely, I like this idea of having civil service member on it. But I also like the idea of having somebody in the community being part of that interview panel itself. I've always done that in all promotionals, all hires, everything. I've always had it in my past where I had somebody from outside. I don't know if we could word that in there, or if that's even something that you as the commission want to do, but I just think it looks, not just looks good, I think it's a good practice to have somebody outside. The commission is absolutely a great way to go, but what if nobody can do it that week or whatever? And I would still like to have that opportunity or option to have somebody outside. Is that even something that is doable?
It's fine by me. Yeah, and my object is to have somebody from the public. This just seems to be a group that kind of understands what's going on.
It seems to me like maybe that would be the option. So like the first invite would obviously be to the commission members. And if for whatever reason they are unable to do it, then we have an option to go outside and get somebody that is not an employee of the city or anything like that.
We just maintain a list too. So it wouldn't slow it down.
Yeah.
We have a list of people you can just go to.
Civil Service Commission. That's the
Yeah.
Citizen representative.
I would think that would be a good thing, because it would also run into promotionals. That's where I really think that outside people really would benefit from that on promotional processes.
But this is only if you can't source a commission member.
Right.
But I could see all kinds of problems with just bringing somebody in that would slow the process
There's-
down.
Like on a promotional process
Nowadays.
or a specialty, like if I'm gonna be selecting a detective, say, I'm gonna wanna have somebody maybe from another agency that has experience as a detective,
Sure,
that knows what to look for, all those kind of things.
makes sense.
So, I don't wanna put myself into
In a box.
a box where I don't have that ability. I think that would be important for the fire chief as well, to have that option to select somebody in some of those certain positions where you need a little bit of experience and expertise in that area. So that's, I don't know if it applies in this what we're looking at or not.
Yeah, there's under the examinations, rule 8, where it speaks to content of the examinations, including tests, physical fitness, blah, 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 interviews. And so then it would seem appropriate there to add some reference to, I have a note here to add, regarding invitation to secretary should invite commission to designate one commission member, or in the absence of available commission members, a member of the public to sit on the interview panel.
That need to be
Sounds
and or, because like in your case, you wanted,
I think on a promotional, it'd probably be better and or. I don't want to exclude commission members if they want to sit on a promotional process or a specialty process.
You would say both, maybe.
I think, so as a commissioner, if you chose to go outside to an agency on a promotion. So the civil service commissioner can still sit and audit what's going on. We don't have to be a participant.
Sure.
And so on a promotional basis, if you wanted to do that, you
No, it's a
could.
good idea.
I think we're working our way with lots.
Get us out of the
It's
bank.
your interview process.
As long as I have the ability to
So-
do that, that's all I'm asking.
So I guess the question is, if you designate or you decide that you need an outside expert to participate in the interview, I don't think
Whether the hearing examiner is comfortable with it.
that matters.
Okay.
You know, if you need a detective, go get a detective. If you need a particular fire expert, you know,
So we do now.
aircraft, water rescue, whatever,
Well, training officer is a perfect example.
you know, then I would expect you guys to be bringing them in anyway.
Okay.
So, you know,
I'm looking for
I think this is just for, an omnibus for the Civil Service Commission or whoever to, you know, just kind of sit and, you know, be part of the process. The rest of it is, you know, it's your department. right? You know, because if we try and put this in the specific in the rules and get to the gritty, then we'd have to amend it every time something changes in the policy or in the procedure for how these exams are given. And I don't think,
I just didn't want it to pigeonhole us into where we had to do something.
right,
That's all.
and that's what I'm trying to avoid. I don't want to get into a situation where you have to ask another mayor every time you want to bring in somebody you need to properly evaluate.
Okay.
And am I off base? or-
Nope, no, you're right on base, because unless one of us, let's just say we're going for a detective, unless one of us has been in that field for a while, we're not gonna have the expertise that you need. And like I said, that's the time when we could sit and audit if we so desire, we're at, you know, so maybe the language is just civil service first, up to one for interview or the initial employment process or whatever the first part of it is, and not even worry about the promotional part, just with the understanding you guys as chief, bring in who do you need to do the job you need to do.
More important when we talk about connection, it's not less. Because it's one thing to have an entry level officer, it's a different one that's an shift sergeant for a fire.
Can I see you guys
You
being,
want to say to participate on the interview panel or you use the word audit, so to observe.
Yeah, I think observe was, audit, just, that's where it came
Well, I mean,
from.
I
But
would
there's a difference.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
active versus passive. I would say observe.
Observe,
I don't think you want us asking.
no, I don't want to do the work afterwards.
And I think that reduces our somewhat.
Right. Agreed.
Are we just on promotions, Bill, or in general?
I would say in general.
Okay, I'm asking questions when I'm interviewing people, so are we stopping doing that? And if so, why?
No,
I'm not against it, I'm just saying they must do it for a reason, and if I'm not sure we ought to be telling them we did not ask questions.
Maybe it would clarify, can you read back what you have?
What I've written so far. Prior to an interview for entry level or promotional candidates, the secretary shall invite the commission to designate one commission member or in the absence of available commission members, a member of the public to observe the interview.
I think that in the entry level officer, I think that a commission member should be on the panel asking questions. The question comes up when it's a promotional or a specialty assignment.
Right.
But you would want to, okay. So I understood what you said, so I'm going to back up and I'm going to say, I think that the idea was for an entry level or lateral, that the Civil Service Commission would be invited and up to one of us could be there to ask the question.
Right.
Should one of us not be available, somebody from the public could be there to ask the question.
That's exactly what
Put on, and we're going to be moved on any kind of promotional or
Oh, okay.
detective. And it's,
All
I'm
right.
just gonna say, whoops, the chief's doing whatever he needs to do to complete the project.
And it sounds like we're participating and then
Versus observing.
let's let it roll.
Well, we have been participating.
Yeah, I think that's where
For
Graham
a
needs
while.
clarification. The first time that he was on
Yeah,
the
we've been
panel, he was
Fuzzy's
asking
been doing this.
questions.
That's the
and
second-
Fuzzy's
yeah,
done
We're
it
gonna
as well.
continue to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
but he's
and I'm not
asking, is
taking
he
a
asking
position on
questions or
any
is
of
he
this.
observing?
I just want to make sure we're clear on what we're doing. Just from the chief seats, it makes sense. A, that the chief had at his discretion or her discretion especially on promotions, but I think the chief should have discretion at all levels. And the way we're doing it now is fine until you want to change it for whatever reason. Yeah, all I'm doing on two different days now is I'm reading the question.
That's
And
all
then
I'm
there are
doing
two
for
others,
this.
yeah, and I'm grading those.
Yeah,
Scoring.
yeah.
Yeah, now see, that's the thing that I
that's
wonder about, because I don't feel qualified on some of the tactical issues, or I'm asking questions on tactical. And we talk at the end about how the grading went. And if there is more than a two-digit difference between mine and theirs, I want to talk about it, because I don't want to ding somebody that I may have overgraded or undergraded. So I'm a little uncomfortable with that. So I just think we need to observe, and then we fulfill our mandate. And if you want us to read questions and grade, that's fine too.
See, I think if I can explain a little bit about that, when on the entry level civil service interview, you're not necessarily talking about or looking at what their answer is tactically or procedurally or anything like that. I mean, they're entry level. They have no experience, they have no training, no education at all regarding that. So there's no expectation that they know how to do this job.
Yeah.
So what you're evaluating is, how do they present themselves?
Yeah.
How do they articulate what they're saying?
Right.
Some of it is a common sense thing. Are they using common sense in their answers? All those things you're evaluating. Anybody can do that. Anybody can evaluate somebody and how they appear and how they present themselves.
Yeah.
Or how well they convey their
Right.
thought, all that. So at that level, and then once they pass, then it's my responsibility to start looking at, are they able to, fit in? Are they able to kind of convey the thought about what police work's all about? I bring in the experience that I have to that interview. So the first interview is really just deciding, do they have the capabilities in your mind to do this job? And the scoring that you do, yours is going to be the same throughout the whole thing. So it's not going to change through that interview panel. Your scores are your scores. So that way, it's not going to change people as they go through. Like if you score somebody at a 5 and another person scores them at a 9, that's okay, because the next person you're going to score at that same level. You know what I'm saying? Your scores are your scores.
So if you don't mind, I'll interject here, because having sat in there, we do talk about the entries at the end of it. And if there's a 9 and a 5, then we hash it out as to
Yeah.
why and
And I'll
wherefore.
tell you why that happened. That was because the direction happened before that there was a concern that there'd be too
Right.
spread out.
Right,
So they tried to bring them closer to, for whatever reason, I don't know.
Okay.
I think your score is your score.
and I'm okay with that. I'm just reiterating how it's been.
Yeah.
And so if we need to go back to your score is your score, which I think is the right way to do it, we just need to make sure that Deanna understands that so that we all get the
Oh.
directions at the start of it.
So that's a procedural thing that the
That
county
is-
examiner.
that
reviews,
really is,
individual
yeah.
scoring versus consensus scoring.
It's
That's
a-
something that's handled on this side.
It's the same thing with the questions that you're asking. The questions that are asked of a lateral entry or lateral applicant should be different than an entry level. Because they're in a different level of experience.
They are.
And so they should be, those questions should be different.
I mean, I
The
don't know
scoring,
if that's accurate or not, but I'm
the
sure.
scoring, well, it would be, if you have an officer that's been on the job for 5 years and he's interviewing, his answers are going to be a lot more in depth. He or she's answers are going to be a lot more in depth. They're going to be more thorough. They're going to know the tactics. They're going to know the procedures and policies and all that. Whereas if you get somebody off the street that has never done anything, they're not going to be able to tell you anything as far as all that stuff. So the questions for lateral and entry should be different.
And I've talked with Dan about that and seen those. and
Well,
made it
that
clear
was a
that-
direction that
wanna-
I gave.
I just want to be sure that my ignorance doesn't alter an outcome. That's all I
I
want.
want to tell you,
That goes
I
back
don't
to
want,
the
I don't
audit
want,
question versus
I
interview.
won't be offended by the way you said.
but I don't want to use
Deanna,
age
throw all of his away.
because it's your experience that you've had in your life that really,
With those questions, I am. Tell me a little bit about yourself, or why did
Yeah.
you choose Snoqualmie? I can do all that, but then sometimes there are questions depending on the round robin where I'm asking them about a tactical
Okay.
situation. So that's fine. All I'm saying is, I don't know if you need to, I don't want to complicate it and weight it more for the officer, and I've had the sergeant and the captain on my panels. I just don't want to be in that position, or any of us in that position, where someone didn't make that above the line 70.
Mhm.
Because I had a couple at 71 and 72. I mean, they could easily drop down. And then all of a sudden, they're not getting another look.
Mhm.
That's all. And I don't know how to execute that, by the way. I'm just expressing it. Otherwise, I enjoy it.
I think keeping the language more broad in the rules
Yeah.
is better. Because it allows it to be handled procedurally. on
Yeah,
the testing
yeah,
side.
that's great. I think that's great. Just don't put anybody on a corner. I think we're doing our job, but we're making sure that they're not cooking the books. You know, we're not Chicago. Sorry,
Yeah,
apologies, to anybody that. Chicago. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's all. I mean, isn't that our job, really?
Yeah.
Make sure that we can tell the average citizen that this is legit.
it's transparent as absolutely
That's right.
possible.
So are we keeping it interview or observe? And we're interviewing. So one way to address the concern about this, the technical questions and tactical is if you have some of those, if you have a commission member, that the interview panel have a matrix and, that an A+ answer will touch on these 6
Yeah.
points or 8 points or something to guide.
I think the
the
goal
less
was to
experienced
have
in
somebody,
evaluating.
the goal was to have somebody that is not in that cop eyes, have a different set of eyes to look at it, to see. Because if you have just cops on the panel, you're gonna have. a
Robert.
certain- Yeah,
Problems.
To get cops from answer.
Yeah.
you know, you really need to have,
You wanna have balance on the
yeah, you
panel.
wanna have balance.
Yeah, you wanna have balance.
I just think you have to have balance.
And one of the other things that we talked about early in the interview process, and I'm not sure you were there, Ken, but
Mhm.
Dan probably told you
Yeah.
was, we were looking at getting a series of questions, 25 or 30 questions for entry, 25 or 30 for lateral, so that somebody like yourself could go in and pick 10 randomly. And when we look at the group of 25 or 30 questions, then we can make sure that there's no, what do you do tactically if the dog runs across the street? We don't have that problem when we get to the entry level. So if we can take care of that part of it by
The
just,
only, so
That
the
is-
only
that's the
issue.
responsibility of the
only-
hearing
the
examiner.
the only possible issue with that is that you have to be asking the same questions.
That's
To
what I
the same,
said.
Yeah.
so 10, the same 10 questions,
When-
not like a pool of
No,
questions.
what he's
Per-
talking about is changing it from panel to panel, so you have the same, so you have a bank of 30 questions, right? 40 questions. Then the panel picks out 10 of those,
or you
And then
pick
they-
up 10 of them.
and then they ask those 10 for all the applicants.
That still makes me a
That
little
sounds like-
uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, but
You
I
can-
would
Because
advocate,
one group that gets these 10 questions could argue something like that this group got these 10 questions
unfair.
and these are
But
unfair,
if
these
we
are
use- but
easier.
if we use the same 10, then Joe Blow gets the questions. He's really good at memorizing the next candidate's
Right.
scenario. He
Yeah.
tells Bob J over here, look, here's the 10 questions. Here's how you ace them. So that's the rationale for taking a group of
Absolutely.
30
Yeah.
and then just you arbitrarily taking 10 and making sure that that group of candidates gets those 10, the same 10. The next group get a different 10. Yeah, and that's the rationale.
I've
for
always
that.
been more focused on all entry level get the same questions and all lateral
They'll
get the
cheat.
same questions, but.
You run into a
I mean,
problem
that's
with that
something
when you do it
we'll have
for,
to
say,
look
here.
at.
I think we're in a rabbit hole pretty
Yeah,
deep right now.
yeah.
We're
Participating in interview.
Yeah, we can talk,
work
we
out
can
those
talk more
technical
of this
questions.
stuff, yeah.
So
We're
let me-
only
Yeah,
on
I hear
page
you, though.
20.
I'm not gonna take us out of the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna shut up for a second here.
Yeah.
I can tell you for a fact that I had somebody on one of my panels answer a question that they were given.
Kind of like
Everybody got the same
coached or
question.
whatever.
They had already been coached. I can't tell you who did it. Because I don't know. It's not that I don't
How long
want
ago
to. I don't have any idea, but it happened. It's a reality. And so,
Was this recently?
pardon me?
Was this recently?
It was.
Well, maybe
Yes,
it's
I've
something
seen
we
it
can
for
talk
over the
about
years that
outside
I've
of
been
this
doing
and
this.
just kind of share the.
And
But they're all-
that became huge. I mean, there was a very large discussion about that because of the cheating. I mean,
Yeah.
But they're all online. The first thing I did was, before I went to your panel, was Google how to answer questions. It's all there.
Yeah. oh,
They're
yeah,
the same question.
Yeah.
I
Anybody
would
who's,
like to just,
anybody who's on a circuit out there interviewing for
Yeah.
multiple jobs, which a lot of these people are getting very similar
They're
questions
gonna-
Exactly.
they're gonna
from
be-
everybody. So to
There's all
suggest
this
that they may be cheating or not,
It's hard to
it's hard to
tell.
have that tangible evidence, but at the end of the day, because we're trying to ask such elementary, broad questions
Right.
at times,
I
unless
don't
they're
consider it,
situational.
I don't think they're cheating. They're just
Yeah.
being
There
thorough.
are people who have a consulting business to advise people.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's all
Right.
available online too,
That's what I'm
suggested
saying.
answers.
Yeah.
for these
Yeah,
types
the
of
suggested
questions.
answers under the question. So,
I think.
We
good
can
on that.
talk, yeah, we can,
I'm good on it.
I'm just trying to-
yeah.
Move it along.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep on keeping on.
okay.
So rule 8.13. Just clean up.
21-3.
813.
8.13, page 23.
Oh,
That's good.
Yeah, the equals 100%, I think is the definition of examination. Say, for 8.15,
Just clarifying.
right, just clarifying. I think 8.19 is, that's redundant language. You're filling in.
Yeah.
You're filling it by promotion. Wouldn't be a promotion, if it's cross department. 8.39.04, bottom of page 27, that's modernizing language. It's employee description. Eight point four three oh four. Page 29. And just broadening it.
Yep. Missing an Oxford.
9.01.
Yeah, correct. And so. Yeah, the question there, Steve's question, I think, was whether or not you would say promotional. You're talking about in a situation where there's a essentially tie scores, how are you going to rank them? And the existing language gives a veteran's preference there and you have to equal scores, but not for promotional register. So Steve was raising questions to whether that created a conflict. I just suggested the purpose of cleanup language. But still keeping that, if it's the desire not to allow that preference. Promotional register, I don't know. Policy reason would be making that distinction. Only for-
Because further in the document, if you remove that section about using the veterans preference points to make the final determination if there's a tie, it moves beyond that to talk about, well, you could use actually the highest scoring of the higher rated testing process. I'm not supporting either one. I'm just, if you were to take that out, it would divert it to the testing process versus the background of the candidate.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I don't have any issues.
I think I have to refuse myself.
So as is, or I mean, is there a reason, Mark, to treat promotional different from the other registration?
Well, there might be, correct me if I'm wrong, do candidates get to use, if they use preference points coming in the door, can they use them again on a promotional exam? I thought they can only use preference points once.
I'm not
with an
sure.
employer. That may be something we need to look into. Because that may have changed, but
And perhaps that's the reason. for carving it out.
yeah, we don't have a lot of veterans in the fire department.
All right, so we can leave it as it is. 90503. Page 32.
I have to quit at 7.
I think that it's one scheduled from 6 to
It's
7.
usually,
Right.
yeah, so we might have
We
to,
can
we're about
extend it.
halfway,
Yeah.
through. Yeah, so I have to go. 'cause I have to
I
pick
can
up-
keep
I have to
notes.
pick up the
That's fine,
kid.
yeah.
If you want to do
Yeah,
the
I can
notes
do
or
the notes,
whatever.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
In that,
Yeah, I
yeah,
was gonna say,
I'll
do you
just leave
want
it
to
in your
just,
office.
okay.
Yeah.
That works. Yeah, I gotta go pick up.
Thank you, Kim.
Yes. thank
Safe
you.
driving out
All right,
there
good
in
all
rain and
this,
dark.
good all this, and have fun. with the rest of your night.
You want to leave your piece of paper?
It's really, I'm not really taking notes on this.
Yeah, that's
I'm
your
just
notes,
saying,
right?
That's my
Yeah.
notes that I'm just reviewing. All you have to do is write who
Yeah.
adjourns and
Yeah, if
if
there's
they
any
make a
motions.
motion.
Yep,
Yep,
exactly. Yep,
perfect.
I'll leave that in there.
And I will leave my office.
Yeah, I'll log it.
Unlock.
Mhm.
Thank you. Have a great night. Thank
Thank you.
Steve suggested this deletion, and I had originally not, so I put it back in, which is why it shows in my edit here. This is again, one of those situations that deals with, I talked about at the outset. If you are gonna have someone leave and try to come back, but in a different department, do we ever see that? It's hard to know whether this would ever come into play, and this, taking the language out broadens things, this the existing rule says only if the department recommended the person come back, gets to say yea or nay. Mark,
Which number is that?
this is 90503.
Oh, man, no, 503.
Deal with a situation where someone either resigned or retired, then came back and wanted to have their eligibility reinstated, but in a different department.
I can't ever recall that happening. Former employee.
Yeah, I'm good taking it.
I'll take it out. Yeah. All right. 90504, that except as otherwise may be required by law, just deals with the potential that under the law rules that a disability retiree or person who resigned who then recovers from the disability statutes. This is saying the rule would otherwise say they don't get to come back unless recommended. The statute likely trumps that. That's the carve out. Okay. We actually have had experience with that. Unfortunately, someone whom there were good reasons not to have the person come back on application. All right, page 34, 908. Again, another cross department possibility. Steve suggested deleting. We can keep or not. Depending on whether folks think that it's a useful invitation. Good. 90901 is language cleanup. Substituting the chief examiner. 1001, top of page 36. Language cleanup again, it referred to an original appointment, which as opposed to promotion. So it's really talking about entry level. So just trying to clarify, original is not defined. Okay. 1005 again, title cleanup. Page 37, 100502. Get an optional deletion. 10.05.03 again, replacing the original entry level, which is the.
Number received, Stuckey and 10.05.02. At least either that or the tab.
Yeah, the indent.
We'll correct that, yeah.
Like making sure it wasn't something controlling something else.
The next really substantive change to look at is in 10.13, 1013, page 38. This is an area where I think the existing rules used temporary or provisional appointment likely interchangeably, but not without clarity there. So we're making it clear in the title of the rule that it is the same thing, but then also clarifying that this would be a situation where in the discretion of the appointing authority and the commission, there could be a temporary appointment made without use of the register. So, for example, a circumstance where someone's out on a disability, maybe it's a long-term disability, 9 months, 8, 7 months, 9 months, and there's an opportunity that they're a qualified candidate. Difficult in the case of the police officer, they're going to need to have a CJTC certification, but there may be people who would be available and to fill a slot, allow the department to keep functioning. But that you wouldn't want to appoint from the register because usually your candidates on the certified register want permanent full-time jobs. You're not likely to get any takers from that. So it's just trying to provide some flexibility.
So the fire department has done that, appointed a temporary that was likely not on a register, like Wallace, when he worked as a temporary for a little while. We're also evaluating the use of part-time firefighters, where they would be paid by shift like an employee versus just being a volunteer. That may be an example. Firefighter goes out for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. It's not a permanent thing that's going to be out, but the volunteer, the part-time firefighter may say, yeah, I'll fill that role full-time to get that experience, knowing that they'll go back to part-time later, unless they test into the position.
I'm okay with it. Not going to happen every day, but it's useful to have that.
Sounds like a big option.
Yeah, it's not a permanent thing, right? It gives us some flexibility.
Okay, 1101, number of suggested deletions, again, largely optional, probably unlikely, really, commission choose a judgment about whether you should keep these or not. The 110104 really is governed by the wage payment rules, and so it doesn't need to be here, so that's a deletion. I think it makes sense.
Into.
.1103, it's largely just cleanup.
You get to the length of the probation.
Should 1103 at the end.
It's 1103.
Okay. So apologize, to keep bouncing off.
Right, it's hard to read on that. 12 months.
Does
Although
it
if there's a
say,
conflict with the CBA?
I just
then
want to
the
make
CBA
sure I
is
have the wording that we had talked about.
Could be extended to 6 additional months.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds.
1107, C had a question about whether it has any application here, and that's service in another class where you have to take probationary period into account, or you might want to. You have that kind of movement between fire and police.
We've
That's really asking.
Yeah, no, we've also talked about if somebody was to test in and they're an employee in the Public Works Department, how would that work? They come over from Parks, they're now working in the fire department. Personally, I'd rather have their probationary time in the fire department because
Because you're evaluating.
that's the trial period for the fire department job.
Yeah, I'm good with 1107.
No, good enough. Everyone.
All right, one probation. Police officer, have a couple,
Yeah.
one that out of them.
So can I ask about 11.7? Was there a change made in 11.7?
I think we're moving,
I think we want to remove it.
No, it's a question of whether to take it out.
Yeah, oh, okay.
remove or leave it. I think we were saying remove it.
Um. This is gonna seem dumb, maybe it's because I've never been a probationary police officer. Is 1111 there for demotion of someone, say, who tests in for sergeant or fire lieutenant and then doesn't cut it? And then you gotta return it back then?
Yep.
Okay, just checking. That's what that meant.
Yes.
So if it meant the same thing for an entry level position. Fire. Right?
Exactly.
Just making sure that there was a use for that other than my initial thought.
And so 1111, there's, I mean, that's sort of going class to class seems like unlikely to be used. You could keep the sort of the unnumbered paragraph at the bottom. If it were to occur, that language just says they would start an interview with probation, or not something to retain that role. Make it, more optional, maybe requiring a judgment of the chief. Start.
I generally tend to favor the employee, but in this case, if they can't hack it in a new position at this point that you're demoting them, they have to start the process. That's my thought.
So keep that language at bottom.
Maybe allow for another position. No. So 1111 says may be demoted if the judgment is, they have not, so they're demoted. And then,
Right, I was looking at the
the
last sentence.
Yeah, so, yeah, if they move up as a probationary and then they don't cut it and we have to bring them back down.
Yeah.
Do they serve another probationary period at the level they had already held for 5, 6, 7 years? Then
I'd say no.
I'd say no.
Because they've already done it.
Yeah.
That,
I would say.
that, I would so believe that, but
This is referring to a class where they have not held regular standing. So if they're demoted to a different class,
Mhm.
other than the one with which
that'd be
they.
a fresh start.
And
well,
Would that happen?
yeah, is that operationally even relevant?
I think that's why Steve suggested.
not for us.
Well,
Okay, well, now.
well, if you had your detective and your detective wasn't cutting, he goes back to, what if he's a sergeant? Does he go back to being a sergeant? Or does he go back to entry level?
Yeah, right now we don't have that position. It's detective is just officer level and
Okay.
it's just especially, so they would just go right back to patrol. It's not even a demotion.
It's just kind of a lateral
It is.
Specialty.
grouping. Anything in fire?
Yeah, so if we promoted somebody from lieutenant to captain or from firefighter to lieutenant, then they wouldn't, there's no other class, they would always go back to the one they held before. So there's nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I think the whole second half. Of the paragraph. It's a little hard.
We're on 1111, right?
Yeah.
Are we good there?
Mhm.
We move on, okay. All right, 12:01. 12:03.
It's clearing it up,
Is that
making it gender neutral. Oh, it's interdepartment transfers.
I know that. You know something we don't?
Yeah, I don't think it's not, I don't think it's needed. I mean, it's,
do we think we're moving 12.03? Is that what the
That's
suggestion
the
is?
question.
Okay.
What happens if you don't remove it? Anyway,
Yeah, no harm in keeping it.
yeah, well,
the other thing I'd recommend is 1201 transfer of employee. The transfer of an employee shall constitute a promotion if it's from police to fire.
Never,
yeah. Wanna get him a helmet? Can I get you a helmet? I got one.
I told you, when I fell out of this place, I want more. Cause I've been taking a beating for a long
He
time.
doesn't even give it back. Every chief I've worked with, they give it back.
He's been trying to get me to fight on that.
Keep fishing. He's good. I gotta give him credit. He's good. He doesn't fire back.
But it sure does liven up the meeting.
I still get along with the guy. Beats me up on a daily basis. I still get along.
So, 12:05. Just to
Bring us back. a little bit.
Sorry.
12:05:02. Do we then eliminate the or a different department? Because it's fire or police. So, but you're not gonna take. You're not doing the,
right, to a different class.
yeah, so different class, maybe, a different department. I don't think so. So.
The only time that might come in, and it's a rare occasion, we could always come back and deal with it. The situation happened in Edmonds where there was a law enforcement officer who could no longer be a law enforcement officer, and they transferred him into the fire department to be an inspector. Because there was no position in the police department that he could have. So again, that's an exception, a rare occasion.
So we
Something
have an inspector?
No, they work out of the city hall building, so they would actually be, they would be non-civil service at that point.
Yeah. And I think that's a problem, not our problem department.
Yeah.
What'd you do on 1203? Anything, nothing? Just floating out there? What are we doing?
I think we delete 12:03. And then in the first line of 12:05:02, delete the or a different department.
I'll go that.
And then that means we can delete 12:05:05 as well.
So it sounds like it, if I'm hearing right, is to remove anything that involves transfers from one department to the other.
Yeah. let's just-
And we can sensitize that through the document.
I just,
Then if it happens, we just discuss it at that point. If it ever came up.
So just making sure I got this. So then we delete 12:05:01 and 12:05:02, we delete or a different in the first line.
different, yeah.
And then 12:05:03 is deleted and 12:05:05 is. Butchered that out.
And then 12:07 deals with the case from, would handle your Edmonds inspection.
Mhm.
We go to the city and we
Right.
don't have any.
I think they did that in Edmonds, so he didn't lose his pension, is what it was. So
Right, 12:09, 12:09:01, it's just clarification. Same with the changes at 12:09:05. 6. 1305, 1307, also clarifying.
We need to delete the
Part
transfer
as
1305, second half. We need to,
yeah. Since that is done. Fourteen, 140102. Two chiefs. Supervisors. Changes on that page or. Right into resignation. We have some highlighted here. Some of the, except as otherwise provided by law, that we'll get into the statutory considerations there, but otherwise I think the commission spent a fair amount of time previously. Just adding clarification at the end that they all still subject to this. So then we put quite a few pages without possible changes coming to 18 and the hearing process. So we have leaving of 180501 a little bit just to make clear that there's been an exhaustion and there's no other grievance or procedure pending. So this process under the rules, the hearing process comes last if those other avenues have been exhausted. Some more clarifications in that respect. I mentioned about some of this authorization for appointment of a hearing officer to assist in management consideration. That would give you the ability, rather than asking the secretary, but to have a lawyer to handle these preliminary matters, discovery, protective orders, things like that, subject to the commissions.
so just to clarify my own understanding of it. So we would then go to the city and say, we'll hire us an LJ. To deal with it.
Or you put that on the agenda as an action item. Direct the secretary. To utilize the city.
Is there a hearing officer defined? Definitely.
Good.
I'm just asking what,
No, it's not.
if it's, do we have any other ALJ copies?
The city has a hearing exam.
Okay.
Who is a lawyer, and their jurisdiction is specified in the statute, or sorry, in the code. But I think there's a catch-all in or other matters as referred.
I was just,
Right.
I just want to be consistent with how the city handles other ALJ.
That person has been selected on the basis of their land use experience, because most of the matters that are in their jurisdiction are land use.
So we might have to go find one.
You would
Want
want someone like Mr. Julia or similar experience, as opposed to. So Sharon is very good. I don't think she does. So
She doesn't do CPA.
I don't think so.
Okay. Sorry, that was my law, rather.
No problem.
1811. Cleaning up the hearing process. Rule 1811. I think all of these changes here in our procedural, changes in 18. Happy to talk about any of them if you have questions.
No.
Just want to take a moment. Yeah. I think all the rest you get down to miscellaneous computation of time. I think it's clean up.
Yeah.
The computation of time tracks the statute. Become the same code. Since we don't count legal holidays or Saturdays or Sundays. Plans the last day of the time period. Plans on.
Excellent. I
We're done.
It's a year and a half's worth of work that, one more meeting, we'll have it done. We just gotta vote on the changes.
bring a fresh document back.
Next so excited about this. Yeah, God, if you get to the hall, that.
They don't move and all those other things.
We have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye. We're going home.
Motion carried.
Thank you, voted.
I gotta go.
Go Kim at 27. Somebody had to vote.
Just a question about. Part 9968.
From 996.
I apologize for not checking on that.
No,
That it was the proper requirement.
no, we covered a lot of good coverage, so yeah,
Yeah.
no, I like it.
Good.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, we go.